You call yourself a perfectionist. It sounds admirable, doesn't it? Like a badge of honor, a sign that you have high standards, that you push yourself, that you want things to be just right. But let me ask you something. If perfectionism is so noble, why does it feel so heavy? Why does it leave you exhausted, paralyzed, and constantly second-guessing every move you make? You call it discipline. You call it self-respect. But deep down, it feels more like a cage. Here's the truth you've been avoiding. You're not a perfectionist because you care too much about getting it right. You're a perfectionist because you're terrified of what happens if you get it wrong. You've convinced yourself that perfectionism is about excellence. But it isn't. It's about fear. Fear of being judged. Fear of being exposed. Fear of truly being seen for who you are, with all your flaws, your brilliance, and your power. Because here's what no one told you. Perfectionism isn't just about avoiding mistakes. It's about avoiding yourself. You don't leave projects unfinished because you're lazy. You leave them unfinished because finishing means they'll be out there in the world, and people will have the chance to reject you. You don't procrastinate because you don't care. You procrastinate because you care too much, and the thought of failing burns more than the thought of never trying at all. You've been hiding behind the shield of, I'm just a perfectionist. But that shield is slowly becoming your prison. Think about it. How many dreams have you delayed because you wanted them to be perfect? How many opportunities have you turned down because you weren't ready yet? How many parts of yourself have you buried because you were afraid they wouldn't be good enough? You think perfectionism keeps you safe, but really it's been keeping you small. And here's the most haunting part. You call yourself a perfectionist because it feels safe, but the truth is you're afraid of something much bigger. You're afraid of your own power. You're afraid of what happens if you really try. You're afraid of what happens when you finally stop hiding and let the world see what you're capable of. Because if you succeed, there will be no more excuses, no more hiding. And that is terrifying. This isn't about perfectionism. It's about fear. It's about the walls you built to protect yourself and how they've trapped you instead. So I'll ask you one more time. Are you really a perfectionist? Or are you just afraid of your own power? Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, we're going to tear down the mask of perfectionism and expose the truth hiding underneath. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsit. You've worn the mask of perfection for so long that it feels like part of your skin. You polish every word you say. You rehearse every move. You live your life like someone is always watching. Someone who will catch every slip, every crack, every imperfection. But let me ask you, who is that someone? Whose voice is it that whispers in your head, telling you that you can't mess up, that you can't let your guard down, that you can't simply be human? For some of you, it's a parent, the one who demanded nothing short of excellence. For others, it's society, feeding you the lie that your worth is measured by your achievements. And for many, it's your own voice, shaped long ago, whispering over and over, you're only safe if you're perfect. This is the hidden truth about perfectionism. It isn't ambition, it's survival. Somewhere in your past, you learned that love was conditional, that acceptance had strings attached, that you couldn't just exist, you had to perform. So you became the straight A student, the overachiever, the one who always had it together. But behind that image is a person who's terrified of being seen for who they really are. And isn't that the cruelest part? You built this perfect version of yourself, not because you love yourself, but because you fear what people would think if they saw the real you. You've turned yourself into a project, constantly fixing, improving, polishing. But when was the last time you felt free? When was the last time you created something just because it brought you joy, without the pressure to make it flawless? Think about it. Perfectionism has stolen more from you than failure ever could. It's stolen your spontaneity, your courage, your ability to take risks. It's locked you in a loop where good enough is never enough, where every accomplishment fades too quickly, replaced by the next impossible standard. You don't celebrate your wins. You dissect them. You don't rest. You prepare for the next challenge. You don't live. You perform. And here's the real kicker. Perfectionism doesn't protect you from failure. It guarantees it. Because perfection isn't real. It's a moving target. No matter how hard you try, it will never be enough. And deep down, you know it. That's why you stay stuck, polishing, editing, preparing. Instead of moving forward, it's safer to chase perfection than to risk stepping into the world as you are. But safety has a cost, and the cost is your life. So here's the question that will change everything. If you weren't trying to be perfect, who would you be? Sit with that, because the answer may terrify you, but it will also set you free. Perfection feels like control, but it's really a cage. You tell yourself it's making you stronger, that if you keep pushing, keep improving, keep getting it right, one day you'll finally feel safe. But has that day ever come? Be honest. Every time you reach a goal, the relief lasts what? A few hours? Maybe a day? And then the voice starts again. Do more. Be better. Fix what's still wrong. That's the real cost of living like this. It's endless. It's exhausting. It's like running on a treadmill that never stops, chasing approval that never arrives. And it's not just emotional. Perfectionism seeps into every part of your life. Your relationships, they suffer because when you're obsessed with appearing perfect, you keep people at a distance. You don't let them see your flaws. You don't let them see your mess. You give them a polished version of yourself, but never the real you. And you wonder why you feel lonely, even when surrounded by people. Your work, it suffers too. You might think your perfectionism makes you better, but in reality, it paralyzes you. How many projects have you delayed? How many dreams have you shelved? Not because you can't do them, but because you can't do them perfectly. And let's talk about your mental health. That constant pressure, it's stress in disguise. It wears you down. It keeps your body in fight or flight mode. It floods your system with anxiety. And over time, it turns into burnout, depression, even physical illness. Here's the cruel truth. You thought perfectionism was keeping you safe, but it's been killing you slowly. And the saddest part? You don't even get to enjoy the life you're working so hard for. You achieve, but you don't feel accomplished. You look successful, but you don't feel fulfilled. You're constantly planning for the future, but you can't even be present in the moment. Perfectionism robs you of joy. When was the last time you laughed without worrying how you looked? When was the last time you did something just for fun, without wondering if you were good at it? When was the last time you allowed yourself to simply be human? And here's the hardest truth of all. No matter how perfect you become, it will never be enough to silence that voice. Because the voice isn't talking about your work. It isn't talking about your looks. It isn't even talking about your achievements. It's talking about you. That voice doesn't want perfection. It wants proof that you're worthy. But you can't earn worthiness. You can't perform your way into self-acceptance. And until you understand that, you'll stay trapped in this endless loop, paying the price with your time, your health, and your soul. So ask yourself, how much longer are you willing to pay for a life that doesn't even feel like yours? Where did this obsession with perfection really begin? You weren't born this way. No child is born thinking, I must never fail. No baby looks in the mirror and says, I am not enough. Those beliefs were planted. Think back to when you were young. Before you even understood what perfection meant, you started learning what got you love and what got you punished. Maybe you grew up in a house where mistakes weren't allowed. A simple error brought yelling, disappointment, or silence that cut deeper than words. Maybe you had a parent whose approval felt like a prize you had to earn. Or maybe you grew up invisible, learning that the only way to be noticed was to be exceptional. Those lessons didn't just disappear. They became part of your wiring. Psychologists call this conditioning. You learned that love wasn't unconditional. It was transactional. It came when you pleased people, achieved more, and hid the parts of yourself that didn't fit their expectations. And here's the haunting part. You may not even remember when this started, because these beliefs took root early, so early that they feel like truth. You don't just believe, I need to be perfect. You believe, I am nothing if I am not. And it wasn't only family. School added another layer. Grades became your measure of worth. Teachers praised you when you excelled, ignored you when you didn't. Peers rewarded you for fitting in and mocked you for standing out in the wrong way. Even culture played its role. Social media, movies, advertisements, all screaming the same message. Be more, do more, look better. Then maybe you'll be enough. And so the pattern was set. By the time you became an adult, perfectionism wasn't just a habit. It was your survival strategy. You clung to it like armor, but what you didn't realize was that armor is heavy. And after years of carrying it, you don't even know who you are without it. Ask yourself, when did you last make a mistake and not spiral into shame? When did you last let someone see your weakness and trust that they wouldn't leave? When did you last do something purely because you wanted to and not because it made you look good? If you can't remember, it's because you've been living by rules you didn't even choose. That's the cruelest part. These beliefs aren't yours. They were handed to you by parents who were also wounded, by teachers who didn't understand the cost, by a society that profits from your self-doubt. You inherited this prison, and because it's all you've ever known, you thought it was home, but it isn't. The question is, are you ready to step outside of it? Are you ready to face the uncomfortable truth that you've been living someone else's story when you could be writing your own? Let's talk about control, because that's what perfectionism pretends to give you. Control over how others see you, over how safe you feel in the world, over whether or not you'll be hurt again. But here's the truth no one tells you. Perfection isn't control. It's fear dressed up as discipline. You're not chasing excellence. You're running from pain. Think about it. Why do you strive so hard to get it right? Because deep down you believe that if you're flawless, no one can reject you. If you're perfect, no one can abandon you. If you never fail, you never have to face the shame that still lingers inside you. But how has that worked out? You've built walls so high that nobody can reach the real you. You've locked yourself in routines so rigid that there's no room for life to surprise you. And the cruel twist? Even with all that effort, you still don't feel safe. Because control is an illusion. You can't control what people think. You can't control the chaos of life. You can't control every twist of fate. And deep down, you know that. That's why you're exhausted. Because you're fighting a battle you can't win. But let's go deeper. Why do you cling so desperately to this illusion of control? Why does letting go feel impossible? It's because, on some level, you're terrified of your own power. Sounds strange, doesn't it? But stay with me. True power doesn't come from controlling everything around you. It comes from knowing who you are, even when everything around you falls apart. It comes from standing in your truth, even if people don't approve. It comes from trusting yourself, even when you make mistakes. And that terrifies you, because for so long you believe the opposite, that your worth depends on how perfectly you perform, that your safety depends on pleasing everyone, that your survival depends on staying small, quiet, and acceptable. Owning your real power means letting all of that go. It means facing the messy, raw, unfiltered parts of yourself. It means saying, this is me, and I am enough even if I fail, even if I'm imperfect, even if I disappoint people. And that feels dangerous because it's unfamiliar. But here's the haunting truth. As long as you cling to the illusion of control, you'll never taste the freedom of real power. You'll keep performing. You'll keep pretending. You'll keep living for everyone but yourself. And one day, you'll look in the mirror and realize you don't even know who you are anymore. Control isn't keeping you safe. It's keeping you trapped. And until you face that, until you're brave enough to step into your true power, you will remain a prisoner of your own mind. So, how do you break free? How do you walk away from the prison of perfectionism, from the walls of control, from the suffocating fear that has silently ruled your life? You start by daring to look inward. This is not about fixing yourself. You are not broken. You are conditioned. Conditioned by old wounds, by the voices of people who told you who you had to be, by a world that taught you your worth is measured by how little you fail. And the first step to freedom is to call this out for what it is. A lie. You are not safe because you're perfect. You're safe when you learn to trust yourself in imperfection. But here's the hard part, and it will shake you. You have to face the fear of rejection, the fear of being seen for who you really are, the fear that if you stop performing, the people around you will stop loving you. Yes, some may walk away, but the ones who stay, they'll love you for something real, not for the mask you've been wearing. And that's where your healing begins. You must ask yourself a question that changes everything. What if I stop running? What if I stop proving? What if I allowed myself to simply exist as I am? Sit with that. It will feel like standing on the edge of a cliff. Your heart will race. Every instinct will scream at you to go back to the safety of the old ways. But that's the test. That's the moment you choose freedom. You see, this isn't about throwing away your ambition or goals. This is about redefining them. It's about wanting success, not because it makes you lovable, but because it brings you alive. It's about choosing to rest without guilt, choosing to fail without shame, choosing to say no, even if it disappoints people. These are small choices, but they open the door to something massive, self-trust. And once you taste that, even for a moment, you'll realize you never needed the chains of control. You never needed to earn love. You never needed to be perfect to be worthy. You only needed to give yourself permission to be you. It won't be easy. You'll stumble. You'll doubt. But each time you choose authenticity over performance, you break one more link in the chains that have bound you for so long. And slowly, the prison door opens, not because someone handed you the key, but because you discovered it was in your hands all along. So here we are, at the end of this journey, but really at the beginning of another. Let me ask you one last question, and don't answer it too quickly. What if you've been afraid of the wrong thing this whole time? You've been terrified of failure, terrified of rejection, terrified of being seen as weak or not enough. But what if the real thing you've been running from is your own power? Sit with that. It's uncomfortable, isn't it? Because deep down, you know it's true. Perfectionism, overachieving, always saying yes, always performing. These weren't random habits. They were shields built to protect you from a truth you weren't ready to face. That you are capable of so much more than the small, safe version of yourself you've been living as. And that kind of power, it terrifies you because it means stepping into the unknown. It means letting go of the excuses. It means owning your choices, all of them. But here's the paradox. The moment you stop running from that power, you stop being ruled by fear. You begin to understand something life-changing. Pain was never your enemy. It was your teacher. It showed you where you were hiding. It revealed the places you still didn't believe in your own worth. And when you stop numbing it, stop distracting yourself from it, stop blaming everyone else for it, you can finally listen. You'll start to hear the whispers under the noise, the voice of the real you, the one who isn't defined by mistakes or achievements, the one who isn't trapped in an impossible game of earning love, the one who is already enough. This is the work, not becoming someone new, but remembering who you were before the world told you be afraid. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to the prison. Not really, because now you know the bars were never real. The walls were built by fear. And fear only has the power you give it. So what you do with that, you take back your life, choice by choice. You start small. You set boundaries. You rest without guilt. You say no when everything in you wants to say yes just to keep the peace. You take the leap even when your voice shakes. And with every small act of courage, you reclaim what was always yours. Your power. Not the power to control everything, but the power to live fully without chains. Look, you will stumble. You will question yourself. That's normal. That's human. But if you keep going, if you keep choosing to face the fear instead of obeying it, one day you'll wake up and realize you're no longer surviving. You're living. And the people who once doubted you, who tried to keep you small, they won't matter anymore. Because the only voice that will define you will be your own. So take a deep breath. Feel the weight of everything you've carried. And then let it go. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You don't need to earn what was already yours. Your power has been waiting for you. And it's time to step into it. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready. Now. Because you are stronger than the fear. You are bigger than the prison. And you are more powerful than you've ever allowed yourself to believe. So here's the truth you've been avoiding. No one is coming to save you. That might sound harsh, but it's also the most liberating thing you'll ever hear. Because the moment you stop waiting for someone else to rescue you, a partner, a parent, a friend, a mentor, even life itself. You take back control. It's terrifying at first because there's no one left to blame, no one left to hand over your choices to, no one to justify why you're still living small. But it's also the beginning of real freedom. You see, most of us aren't actually afraid of failure. We're afraid of responsibility because responsibility means if we fail, it's on us. But here's the flip side. If we succeed, that's on us too. So ask yourself, how long are you going to keep living the same story? How many more days will you wait for the perfect time to be yourself? How many more years will you silence the voice inside you that's begging for more? Listen closely. That voice is not your enemy. It's not your weakness. It's your truth, and it's tired of being ignored. You built an identity around being cautious, being agreeable, being realistic. But realism has become your cage, and the walls are closing in. This is your wake-up call. Not tomorrow, not next year, not when you feel more confident. Now, because the longer you wait, the more those walls will tighten. The more you'll believe the lie that this small, limited version of you is all you'll ever be. But you know that's not true. You've always known. That's why you feel the tension. That's why you can't shake the restless ache in your chest. It's the call to step into your life. Fully, completely, even if it scares you. Especially because it scares you. So here's my challenge to you.